with marriages and couples, and I also work with families and helping people to grow within their family of origins so that they can be healthier, happier people. This video came out of a need that I saw in individuals who struggled with the skill of empathy. I work with a lot of folks who are adult children of dysfunctional families, and empathy is a real problem. Many times individuals have not had the experience of empathy in their lives and have difficulties practicing it in their relationships. It does not come naturally. Well, let me share, what is empathy? Empathy is the ability to feel and share another person's emotions. I mean that in a healthy way. I think many times codependents are overly fused with other people and feel into and share into other people's emotions and feelings. The problem is they're not aware of their own, and that ends up being hyper empathizing with a very low ability to be aware and express your own emotions, creating a problem we call codependency. Empathy is a healthy ability to feel and share another person's emotions while being a self and being a healthy you. Some believe that empathy involves the ability to match another's emotions, while others believe that empathy involves being tender-hearted towards another person. There are a number of definitions regarding empathy, but empathy is very important for communication, and particularly for relationship communication. Since empathy involves understanding and sharing emotional states of other people, this skill is essential for healthy and happy marriages with less conflict. Well, first of all, I wanted to share, why is empathy or empathizing so hard? These reasons are the most common that I have found. People have trouble empathizing because they feel, if I empathize, I feel I become vulnerable. If I take your side or understanding your side, it makes me far too vulnerable. And so I stay on my side, working hard not to empathize. Second, if I empathize, it weakens my position because it proves that I agree with you. Many people see empathy as a sign of agreement. Again, if I understand your thoughts, understand your feelings, and share and understand what's going on with you emotionally, I therefore must agree with you. So since I cannot agree with you, because I may not agree with you, then I don't empathize. Because that would make me too vulnerable, that would also give up my position or my beliefs. Some believe that empathy is an expression of personal weakness. If I don't stay strong in my position, which means not empathizing with you, then I am being weak. If I empathize with someone, I am somehow being soft or weak in the relationship. Another reason why I think empathizing can be so difficult, particularly in marriage relationships, if I empathize with you, I will have to deal with my fears. Because one problem I might have is that if I shared your belief, understood your emotions, it might tap into fears, struggles, feelings that I don't wish to tap into. So I do not empathize. Again, it's too threatening to empathize. So we don't. Another reason, if I empathize, it would be too intimate. And I am allergic to intimacy. A lot of folks have grown up with an allergy to an allergy to intimacy, and as a result, they cannot empathize because it would make a couple or them in the relationship become too close, too real. And empathy has a way of warming up a relationship, bringing two people together when you empathize. And that just may be too much intimacy. And their allergy to intimacy is just too great, so I just can't empathize. What are some of the things that get in the way of empathy? I think having a past experience of hardly ever being empathized with. Folks who grew up in their family of origin and there was very little empathy going on, especially in dysfunctional families, they had little modeling or experience for empathy. So they just really don't know how to do it. They haven't seen it work. They haven't seen how healthy and helpful and warm it feels. And so they just don't have that experience. Some have never learned how to empathize. They weren't taught how do you empathize. Parents didn't say, now when your friend was doing that, let me tell you what you might do, or let me share with you how they might have been thinking or feeling. Parents having not taught that, then the child doesn't learn that as readily. So they have never learned how to empathize, and maybe not even know how to do it. Past abuse can get in the way of empathy. Depression can get in the way of empathy. Counterdependency gets in the way of empathy. Again, if I tend towards a more narcissistic way of looking at the world, it's me-centered, then I have a hard time kind of understanding your part of the world. Because basically my world is what matters, not yours. And that's counterdependency or narcissism. Mood disorders can cause real problems for intimacy because often folks with mood disorders or depression and such, they don't have the insight to do that. Too much anxiety can create difficulties for empathy. Growing up feeling unlovable, growing up feeling unforgivable. If we don't feel lovable and we don't feel forgivable, it is very difficult to empathize with other people. It is just too painful to do that. So let me talk about how can we learn how to empathize. Empathy is not difficult, it just takes practice. Simply, if I thought that way that you think, or saw things the way you see them, I could understand the way you feel. And that's a statement of empathy. If I saw the world from your eyes, I probably would feel that way and think that way. That's empathizing. So what are 7 keys to empathizing? The first key is you got to choose to want to. If you don't want to, you're not going to do it. So we have to choose to will ourselves to be empathetic and to empathize more with those around us or our spouse. Second of all, bracket your thoughts, feelings, and conclusions or arguments and set them on the shelf temporarily. This may not be easy. If we've had a lot of trouble with enmeshment, fusion, dysfunction, it's kind of hard to step outside our own conclusions, thoughts, and feelings. But that can be learned. But first we can work on bracketing them. For right now, and I'm going to practice that, I'm going to set my feelings, emotions, and thoughts over here on the shelf and try to understand yours. That's a very good work, and it will pay off greatly if we practice that. Then after we've bracketed our own thoughts, feelings, emotions, and conclusions, choose the other side. Argue their case mentally. Take their side mentally and emotionally. Take their side. It doesn't mean you don't have your side. It doesn't mean you don't have your experience. But empathy is about taking their side for the moment. Fourthly, learn how to listen or practice active listening. Listen for their feelings and how it would connect to their logic. and how their feelings would connect to their thoughts. In other words, if you thought I was trying to hurt you, then I could understand why you might feel hurt. Now, that doesn't mean I was trying to hurt you, but I can understand if you thought that, I can understand how you could feel this. And again, that's empathy. I'm feeling into your experience. Fifthly, examine where you learned not to empathize. Do your family of origin work of recovery. That will help you with empathy. Sixth, deal with your anger, resentment, hurt, feelings of betrayal, and look for emotional triangles. Me, them, and them, or it. We often get involved in emotional triangles, which makes it much more difficult for us to empathize. But if we deal with our anger, our resentment, it allows us to empathize with others more. And again, the more we hurt, the less we feel good about ourselves, the more difficult it is to feel into and care about the thoughts and feelings of others. In other words, our bucket is empty. How am I going to hear your bucket or even understand your bucket? So we have to deal with our bucket first so I can empathize more. Seventh, think counterintuitively. In other words, what is not logical or rational or follows in a logical way for your way of thinking. Don't think about how you think and feel. Think about the opposite. In other words, if I'm thinking, well, I didn't try to hurt them, why would they feel hurt? I wasn't trying to hurt them at all. I can't even imagine that. Counterintuitive thinking and feeling would be, if I were to think I was being hurt, then I could understand how I might feel hurt. That's counterintuitive to the way you are thinking and feeling. Because you're thinking and feeling, I absolutely did not hurt them and wouldn't, and that's just nutty. But that's not empathy. Empathy requires us to see it from their eyes, to stand in their shoes, and to feel it from their, and to see the movie from their seat in the movie house, not from our seat. And again, just because I empathize doesn't mean I agree. Because I can say, if you thought I was hurting you, I can understand why you might feel hurt. Whereas I know inside that there was no desire or intention for me to do that at all. So I still hold my position and conclusions, but I'm putting those in abeyance. I'm setting them aside while I'm caring about you and how you see the world. That's empathy. I want to share with you a good website if you want a resource. There's a great one by Peter Gariach. I'm not sure how to say his name. He's a social worker from Portland, Oregon, and it's called Break the Cycle. And I think he's got some really good tips and helps regarding empathizing. And you might go to his website and it could be of help to you. I hope you've enjoyed the video today. I hope you'll join our website, YouTube website, and give me a call if I can be of help. I do in-office and online therapy. Watch my other free videos, and I want to thank you for listening. Have a great day. Hi everybody, my name is Jerry Wise and I'm a life and relationship coach. I've been helping individuals, couples, and families for over 40 years, and this program, podcast, video is entitled, The Problem is Not the Problem. I remember reading in a book called Change by Paul Lewick and John Weekland and Richard Fish. And I remember reading a long time ago in this book where they talk about, we smiled at the joke about the drunk who is searching for his keys not where he really lost them, but under the street lamp, because that's where the light is the best. And we go looking under the street lamp in our relationships for solutions. We don't look at where the problem is. We don't look at where the root of the problem is. We look where the light is the best. Well, that may not help us find our keys. Problem formulation, or how you see the problem, is everything in relationship problems. How we formulate the problem will determine the solution. Every question that I get comes out of someone's way they view the problem. So in the question that you ask, or any question you ask, is a tell about how the problem is formulated. And the problem is not the problem. What is said and done is not what's going on. We tend to see people rather than patterns as a problem. We tend to see the content, not the process of what's going on. And then we try to solve our relationship system problems, marriages, friendships, work relationships. Learning how not to look at the magician is the way to see what's going on in a magic show. Don't look where the magician wants you to look, because that will keep up the game, and it will keep up the magic. When the magician says, when magician is making a point about this, he may be doing something down here so that the magic can happen. He redirects your looking. Well, that's what happens to us in relationships as well. Our families, marriages, workplaces, and relationships are all magic shows with sleight of hand, misdirection, and distractions. And we have, as Murray Bowen once said, observational blindness about what's going on. And that's how magicians work, is by observational blindness. We blind ourselves either by sleight of hand or misdirection, and then the magic happens. A relationship system is full of sleights of hand, misdirection, and distraction, which is hidden by observational blindness, naivety, denial, distortion. And when we have denial, when we have distortion, then that feeds into the observational blindness, and we can't see what's going on in a relationship. Systems thinking views problems as symptoms. Let me give you an example. A wife doesn't call her husband during the day, and the husband becomes sour, hurt, and he comes home and confronts his wife. You didn't call me today. And she says, well, I was busy with the kids and laundry, talking to my family on the phone for an hour or so. I couldn't get them off. And I also had to run errands. Well, you never seem like you care about me. I call you lots, he says. You always seem to choose your family over me. I don't even know why I keep trying. It's just hopeless. You're just hopeless. She says, well, why do you always put me down? You act just like your father when you do that. And he says, well, if you wouldn't spend so much time calling your family, maybe you would think about me. And now we have an observational blindness relationship argument. If I ask her what the problem was, what would she answer? My husband is always critical and I can never do anything right. He just expects too much of me. He would answer, my wife never reaches out to me. I don't feel like she even cares. I've asked her and asked her if she could just make a call and see how I'm doing. She doesn't treat me as though I'm even special to her at all. This is what I would call linear thinking, only looking at the surface and a simple cause and effect thinking, not a zooming out thinking, which comes with maturity and self-differentiation. How is their problem formulated? Blaming, looking outwards. For them, the problem is the problem. For her, the problem is him. For him, the problem is her. George Berkeley, a philosopher once, an author from the 1700s, said, "Oftentimes we first raise the dust and then we claim we cannot see." Both husband and wife here are raising the dust and then cannot see. The couple will ask themselves, why does he or she do that? They may even ask, why do I do that? Or why do I get reactive? I don't know, but it's because she's making me or he's making me. But often they come up empty. Albert Einstein once said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when creating them. And he was very wise in that perspective. Maturity, self-differentiation, allows you to use a new thinking rather than an old thinking. Family systems thinking also helps us to think, in a new way. The couple is not seeing how they function in their marriage and how they are suffering in the same way as they did growing up. They are still entranced and blinded by their family of origin functioning within them. We tend to get in a trance or hypnotized by our family of origin and imprinted, and therefore many other relationships in our lives. This is what I call the family trance. Well, couples can have trances too. The couple trance. The couple cannot see what their problems are since they are stuck in their family trance. I also believe they have a self-knowledge problem and an allergy to intimacy. And neither of them see that. They just see what they're doing wrong, and he sees what she's doing wrong, and she sees what he's doing wrong. When someone comes to me for help, I want to look beyond the problems and look away from the problems. Because if I look away from the complaint, the content, and the symptom, that can be very, very healing and insightful. It is not that content doesn't matter. The problem or argument they're having does matter, but it is symptomatic. It's not at the root of why they're having this argument. The real deeper problems or root problems are his neediness and triangle thinking and feeling. His false expectations that if his wife did what he wanted, it would fix or help him. And he would be made to feel more special. He is truly upset over never feeling special or wanted. This gets overlaid onto the marriage. The husband has an empty bucket syndrome, a bucket with holes in it from growing up. But he wants his wife to fill that. And why isn't she doing it? Because we're married, aren't we? And I show her all of these things. She should be showing me all these things. I treat her special, so she should be treating me special. And in fact, that's why we often treat them special, because it's what we want. But it's often done in a codependent way. In other words, I'm doing it to get, because I need you to fill my bucket. Her problems are not that he is always so critical, but that his criticalness triggers her unresolved family issues of always being criticized and never being able to do enough, which is why she spends so much time on the phone with her family to get their love and acceptance. She does it so much with her family, she has little left to give her needy husband and then resents him for it. And then they argue out of these boxes they live in. The boxes they live in, they just argue out of them. And out of those boxes. And they cannot get out. The real problem in their response to the problem, the real problem is their response to the problem, not the problem and their limited problem formulation, how they see it. This is how I would understand the problem in a role play. And I'll try to help the wife self-differentiate. A wife doesn't call her husband during the day, and the husband becomes sour and hurt. He confronts his wife. You didn't call me today. The wife, instead of defending herself and feeling and re-engaging those feelings of family of origin that she has, of never being able to do enough, and by recognizing that, she then might be able to say, well, Bob, does that bother you? Rather than, I'm the cause, does that bother you? Well, you never seem like you care about me. I call you lots, he says. You always seem close to your family over me. I don't even know why I keep trying. It's hopeless. Bob's neediness is coming out from his family of origin as it operates inside him. And the wife responds, I know you have said many times you would like me to call you, but I struggle with that request. Do you not think I care about you? Instead of, why do you always put me down? Da, 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 da. And then the husband, of course, in his response, well, if you wouldn't spend so much time calling your family, maybe you would think about me. And she tells her husband, I don't think it's my relationship with my family that is the problem. I think it's how you feel about how I feel about you. Maybe I could find some other ways to show this to you. I'm not simply trying to get the couple to have some insight, because it's not simply insight that helps, though that helps, but I want to resolve the issues, for example, that would make it hard for the wife to give those responses. So as we do the role play, why would that be hard for you, Mary, to give those responses? And that would bring up her issues from family of origin. If I did the same thing with the husband and his responses, he would then become more enlightened about what are the struggles that he's having inside. And they're not exactly because of Mary. Looking at your issues and looking at the issues you bring to the relationship and focus on your own functioning will help clarify and resolve and heal a relationship. The problem is not the problem. I hope you'll listen to more of my videos. I have a May 30th, 2020 workshop coming up. I'd like you to join. I hope you'll listen to this also on my podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, and all the other major streaming apps. And please subscribe to this channel. You can also click the bell next to subscribe so that every time I put out a new video, you'll be notified of that. Also, my own music is on Anchor FM or Spotify as well. You can find it under my name. There's still time to register for the workshop. Go to my website and sign up. And I appreciate you watching today, and I hope you have a great day. Hey, hi everybody. My name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a life and relationship coach, and I've been working to help people to learn to self-differentiate and to find themselves for decades. And this video is entitled, Stop Letting Others Define You. I hope you'll subscribe, like, comment, and join and support this channel so that more free videos can come your way. Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the book, The Four Agreements, he says there's a huge amount of freedom that comes to you when you take nothing personally. No one, as I believe, has the responsibility to define you or to define us. No one has that responsibility. That's our responsibility. Ruiz writes further, nothing others do is because of you, and that what others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. I love that quote. In working on reducing allowing others to define us, we want to and must remember we are not a label, we're not a role, we are not a demeaning statement, and we are not a put down. And it's helpful if we can begin to practice countering these things and countering these statements. And in my own case, I use an invisible filter, and it's a mental filter, to filter out high praise and to filter out negative labeling. When someone says something negative about me, I realize they are talking about their experience, not mine. And I think that's very important to remember, that when someone says something negative and is being critical or mean in that way, they're talking about their own experience. They just happen to use your name and are talking to you. For example, I've had some people on there are a couple of people who've mentioned, on YouTube comments, for example, and they say, well, Jerry, you're just blaming the victim. And I've been working with victims of trauma and abuse and problems and marital difficulties for decades. And I don't blame victims. I understand victims have been victimized. So they're not talking about me. They're talking about what they fear someone may be doing, and they often may not listen carefully to what someone's saying. And also there are many ways to look at a problem, and you can look at it different ways and not intend or choose or be doing the blaming of a victim. Another thing to remember in not letting others define you, stop absorbing, or as Ross Rosenberg says, observe, don't absorb. And I use that a lot with lots of people and with myself. I want to learn to observe and not to absorb. Observing is up here, absorbing is down here. And I want to use my mental capacity when someone's talking to me or trying to define me. I have also used a tool called Coca-Cola, in which when someone says something crazy or it makes no sense to me what they're saying about me or to me, I think of it as being them calling me a Coca-Cola. Well, how rational is it that I'm a Coca-Cola? I know I'm not a Coca-Cola. Why should I feel hurt because someone called me a Coca-Cola? And so I then reduce the amount of unnecessary suffering and the hurt from what they're saying, because I'm saying, well, there they go, calling me a Coca-Cola again, because it doesn't make any sense. And it's not who I am. Again, back to the beginning, it's about them. It's not about me. It's important that we trust our gut and trust our feelings. But when our gut is filling with our family of origin, then we want to work on those messages and emotional experiences that we are having. We need to get a coach, get a therapist, get in a support group so that we can work on those triggering emotions that are inside of us. if I've always felt I was worthless, and then somebody calls me worthless, which is of course like calling me a Coca-Cola, because it's totally untrue and really has nothing to do with reality, it triggers a feeling of worthlessness in me. So when those things happen, when those systems feelings happen, then I want to go get some help to get that feeling out of me. I'm not going to take their feeling in me. I'm going to work on my feeling in which their statement triggers me. Because their statement is saying, well, you're a Coca-Cola, and then I go cry for an hour because someone called me a Coca-Cola. That's really kind of irrational. Now, if I felt worthless, then I want to go work on my feelings of worthlessness, which are, again, negative messages, not true messages, not real messages. They were imprinted, or they might have been promoted by my family of origin, but they're not true. They're what I've learned. Well, if we've learned them, we can unlearn them. And that's the good news. I also think it's important that we see the anxiety in others. When you're being defined by someone else, generally their anxiety, often systems anxiety, but their anxiety has been triggered. And that's why they're needing or wanting to define you. Start looking to other people's anxiety and start observing that. I remember I had a boss, and again, she was relatively immature, not a bad person, but just immature. And she had grown up with some abuse and had some abusive relationships. And at that time, I was the only male in the department. And when she would make comments to me, like, well, I'm just going to have to watch you more carefully. And I'm kind of going, everybody's kind of going, well, Jerry's kind of the most full of integrity kind of employee we have. I mean, why has he got to be watched? Because she was dealing with her own anxiety. And I also noticed that her anxiety was triggered when she would say things like that. That would help me to calm down if I could understand her anxiety has been triggered. Then I know to watch out for what's going to be said and not take it to heart and not take it as a real critique. One of the primary ways to reduce absorption, and I said observe, don't absorb. One of the primary ways to reduce absorption is to practice reducing your anxiety, working to stay calm. Stay in your head if necessary, and avoid as much as possible the overwhelming feelings. This takes practice. I understand that. Everything I teach and everything I talk about are things I have had to go through, endure, learn, and I still am learning them. I haven't arrived. I'm still learning these things. We may still feel anxious, but focus on your thinking process. Just because I'm anxious doesn't mean I can't try to work on focusing on my thinking process. What they're saying, they're highly anxious and triggered. They're saying these things to define me, and I must not take them as serious. And that they are not truly a definition of me. They are coming out of their anxiety. Check how you view yourself, how you define you. Are you a good person? Do you believe you're a good person? Do you believe you're a loving person, a caring person, a generous person? I didn't say, are you a perfectly good person? I didn't say you are a perfectly generous person. I'm saying, in general, are you a good person? Do you see yourself as being a good person? And defining ourselves as, I am a good person, flawed, but good. So we want to work on how we view ourselves. The Inner Bonding book by Margaret Paul is a place to start. No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz is another place to learn about accepting yourself. And then If You Meet My Family, You'd Understand by Jack Shitama. Shitama. And those might be some beginning places you can learn to accept and love yourself more. And people say, well, how do I learn to love myself? Do you know what I tell them? It's not a how question. It's a when question. It's like me asking you, how do I breathe? And I'm holding my breath. It's not a how question, it's a when. When you open your mouth and breathe, that's when you'll breathe and learn to breathe. And same way with loving yourself. There's not 5 techniques that tell you how to do that. There are things that might be fruits of that or evidence of you loving yourself. But loving yourself is a choice. Loving you is a choice whenever you're ready to make it. Whenever you're ready to do that. Now, you might fall back and not be loving yourself as much. Then you choose again. And we keep choosing and keep choosing, especially if we grew up in a dysfunctional family where we didn't feel loved. Now you're the parent for you as an adult. Not your family of origin, but you. Always remember when others are trying to define you, always remember they don't know you like you know you. They don't know you like you know you. In fact, nobody knows you like you know you. No one has fully walked in your shoes for the last many decades. And we always tend to think people can just know us. And there are many times that people will come in, and when I was in practice in marriage and family therapy, they would come in and they would think I have X-ray vision, or I can know them better than they know themselves. And it's kind of like, gosh, that's a superpower I don't have. Now, certainly I've learned some things. I can take some cues and kind of get some ideas, but I'm not in somebody's body. I don't know them. They've been with themselves for a long time. And so I want to be real careful about, what I say, what judgments I make, what conclusions I come to. I want to have them participating in that rather than me defining them. I can just tell you're a mean person. Well, I don't know. I don't know all that's going on inside of them. Maybe they're a traumatized person, not a mean person. They're mean on the outside, traumatized on the inside. No one has fully walked in your shoes. So when people go to define you, always remember, I hear what you're saying, but that's not me. And that's not all of me. And in fact, I'm not even sure it's any of me. And then I've had, people will say, let's say we have a situation in which we get triggered and then we avoid. And then you'll be blamed or labeled or criticized or defined as, well, you're just an avoider. No, I'm not an avoider. That is what I use when I get triggered and I am in a survival mode, or I don't know how to handle it any other way. That's different than I am just an avoider. So others don't know. They just see a snippet of your behavior and then want to define you. Don't accept that. Blaming is a form of defining others. We want to avoid blaming others. We want to ignore the blaming we get as well. And that blaming is often an emotional triangle between the other person, an issue they're having, and you. And you get pulled into by being the cause or the blame for this. And blaming is a form of defining of you. And I want to reject that. Someone clearly can talk to me out of concern or desire to, hey, Jerry, you had done something that hurt my feelings. But that's them talking about them. And then I realize, I think I did hurt their feelings. That wasn't a very kind thing to say. Versus being blamed. Because again, everyone wants to blame others for their feelings, their actions. And I want to learn to begin to reject that and reject that notion. Well, you're just hurting me. No, I may be doing something that's triggering your hurt, but I'm not trying to hurt you. I want to have that clarity, and that takes a while to learn that. Shoulds. That's another way of, shoulds are a way of defining you. Again, others defining you. Push back. These are shaming statements, or at the very least intrusive statements, and not respectful of your boundaries. When someone said, you should have done X, Y, and Z, no, wait, that's, you're not my parent. You're not a judge in a court of law. You're another human being just like I am. And shoulds don't feel good. And shoulds are shaming. Because that meant you messed up, you should have done this. Well, that's not helpful, and it's not accurate in terms of defining you. And like so many others, I like to change shoulds into coulds. And maybe I could say, if someone's trying to define me, you should have done this. Well, I guess, Uncle Bob, I guess I can count on you to say how you really feel. Or I remember somebody say, well, Jerry, you're just fat. I go, well, I guess I can count on you to say how you really feel about me. And again, kind of mean, insensitive, inappropriate, and, well, you should have lost weight. Well, I could have, and the choices I make at the time are based on what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what my experience is. I'm glad you had it all, my life all cleared, all lined out for me. And of course, many times, you just go, duh. You should have lost weight, Jerry. Duh. I mean, what's the purpose of you saying that? Other than to define me. And I even had, there were a couple of people on YouTube back when I weighed more than I weigh now. And they would say, well, I can't listen to someone whose weight is so out of control. And if you're that heavy, then you've got a lot more problems than I have, and I can't listen to your videos. Well, that's interesting. And of course, I would say there are plenty of other YouTube channels that you can listen to. And be careful about your judgments. It could put you in peril because you may not know everything. There are those who say, well, you should have studied business rather than art in college. Well, I could have, but I chose not to. Jerry, you should have made this video much shorter. It was too long. Well, I could have, but length is my strength. Or a Mark Twain response, which is, or I'm too lazy to make it shorter. I'm not going to let somebody define me. I'm open to other people's critiques if it is for my well-being and caring for me, but not someone who's blaming and shaming. That's to define me. Shaming and blaming is about defining you. Remember where you end and they begin. Stay on your side of the tennis net. Keep them out of your side of the tennis court. And keep the emotional net between you and them up. And that's appropriate. And that so many times we want to jump over and be in someone else's life, or jump over and they got to be in your life, telling you how to dress and look and what job to have and what color your hair should be and what, and that in my case, mom would say, when you're going to get a haircut and all kinds of things. It's like, wait a minute, that's for me to decide. Intimacy can include lowering the net some, but only for those trusted and safe relationships in our lives. So we can lower that net, but in the circumstances in which we have trust and respect going on between the two of us. If we don't, my net is up. And in fact, the more disrespectful, the more blaming and shaming they are, the higher the net goes between me and them emotionally. Because they are wanting to define me. Don't give away ownership of your decisions. Own your own decisions, good or bad. I remember I filed for bankruptcy way back in the 1980s. And I did feel some shame over that. It was difficult. I felt guilt. I felt, and it was hard. And there were some people that thought I was wrong for doing that. Well, you should have just paid off all those debts. When actually I did pay off a good number of them, even after bankruptcy. But you shouldn't file bankruptcy. That's not a good thing to do. Well, duh. I know bankruptcy is not a good thing to do. However, when there are no other options and no other choices, then sometimes we land ourselves or have some failure in business or whatever. There's not a lot of remaining options that are available. And so, yes, I could have not filed bankruptcy, but that could have been worse than the bankruptcy itself. So, shoulds to coulds. Don't give away ownership of your decisions. Remember, decisions about your life are for you to make and not others. When they say, well, you shouldn't have filed for bankruptcy, Jerry. Well, I didn't know you were deciding that for me. And you weren't around at that time to give me all of the good counsel you're giving me now. I say in a playful way. Simply put, Jerry, you're making a bad decision. Or you made a bad decision. Well, how do you know I made a bad decision? We didn't even know each other then. And what tells you that I made a bad decision? Have you asked me what has gone into my decision making? Many times others assume your thinking process. They may not know all that was going on for me. Fears, trauma, triggers, and limited and scarcity choices that I was facing. So they don't know all that. They're just going, well, I'm painting the broad brush and going, well, you shouldn't have done that. And, we can also go, well, so what? I'm not the first person to make that decision. I'm not the first person who's ever filed bankruptcy. And it certainly wasn't. Many times people will feel lots of shame and guilt over divorce, for example. And as I've worked with people who have struggled with the difficult decisions about divorce, how painful and difficult it is. I don't have people coming in going, oh, well, I'd like to change wives today. I'd like to change husbands today. That just sounds like a great thing to do. Usually it involves lots of pain, decision-making, heartache, all kinds of things before they come to that decision.
And so I like to give them that benefit of the doubt. Also, it's not for me to decide whether they should do that or not. Only I can decide that for myself. An additional point, you are not their burden carrier. You are not others' burden carrier. If others or someone else is upset about something that is within your adult right to do or decide, it's not your job or my job to make them feel good or better about it. You do not have to carry their burden of upsetness. Just like if somebody says, well, I'd never file bankruptcy. Why did you do that? That's pretty upsetting that you just took a cheap way out of whatever. It's like, it's not my burden to make you feel better about my bankruptcy decision. You're going to have to work on feeling better about it or not. That's up to you. But I don't have to make you feel better about it. I really don't. I'm choosing this person to marry. And let's say your parents are just so opposed to that. You're not my burden to carry. This is who I'm choosing. I'm sorry you're upset about it. That's something you'll have to work through. This is who I want to marry. It's not my job to make it all okay for you. That's your job. That's the adult's job. And that's what we do. Do you think I've ever had a friend who married somebody I thought it would be an awful marriage? And I've been wrong before too. I want you to know that. And I've been right. But the thing is, it's not mine to decide. If they ask me an opinion or if they want my counsel, then of course. If they don't, it's not mine to decide or to go and tell them, you better not do this. It's going to be terrible. Many times when people have already gotten to that point, it doesn't matter what you say. They're just going to have to learn from going through the experience. Saving others is a difficult thing to do. And from a person who spent a long time trying to save others, I know how difficult that can be. You are not their burden carrier. You are not their child. They are not your creator. We used to have a saying when I was pastoring in a church, maybe some of you recall, God loves you and has a plan for your life. We changed it to playfully, they love you and they have a plan for your life. Well, it sounds like they love you and they have a plan for your life. And they're playing God or they're playing creator because they know best what you should be doing. And we would say that many times. Or I love you and I have a plan for your life. And then we would joke about that. Because I'd say, well, you guys shouldn't be doing that. And I go, oh, I guess I love you and I have a plan for your life. I'm stepping over the tennis net over to your side. And I shouldn't be over there. I have heard Edwin Friedman say to someone who is defining him, Edwin Friedman being the marriage and family therapist, theologian, rabbi, who's a great author and a great marriage and family theoretician and Bowen follower. He says to someone who is defining him, I hear what you're saying. Now let me check with the boss. And I think that's a much better approach than, well, you're not the boss of me. That's more reactive. His was, oh, I hear what you're saying, but I'll check with the boss. And who is the boss? Me. I'm the boss. You're not the boss. Well, you shouldn't buy that car, Jerry. Oh, well, I hear what you're saying. Maybe I have some good reasons for that, but I'll check with the boss. Me, I get to decide it. I'm paying for it. I gotta finance it. It's for me to decide. Stop focusing on their purpose for you. Focus on your own purpose and direction. here's an important point as well. Remember, don't let people lift you up. You are not your successes or your talents. You are a being, not a doing. Don't absorb the negative or the positive. Janelle Monáe, Monae, writes, don't get high off praises and don't get too low on critiques. And she's right. If you want to work on not getting low on negative messages, work on not getting high on positive ones or overly positive praises. You are not your work. You are not your parenting. You are not your relationships. You are you. Now I want to share a few examples that might be of help to you and maybe some responses. When anxiety is relatively low, it can be up a some, and you're not dealing with the malignant narcissist, I'm not saying these are the responses you want to do, though some people have enough in their relationship where they could even do this to a narcissist. But I'm not recommending that. I would say this is for just good old neurotic, dysfunctional people around you versus the malignant narcissist, let's say. Because many times people say, well, I wouldn't do that if I wouldn't say that to a narcissist. And I'm saying, well, then don't. I'm not telling anybody to use my examples in an unhealthy way. When someone says, you are lazy, I might respond, it sounds like I'm living up to your expectations. Or, I think it's more important that I be lazy so you have something to complain about. So maybe I should be more lazy. You are stupid. Well, I don't think you realize how hard it is to be unstupid. I'm not stupid. I only act that way at times. Or, yeah, I know. We all are. Now let's talk about the upside of the fantasy sides that people will also convey to us. Oh, you're my muse. I hope not. I'll lead you into some very crazy places. Well, gosh, I didn't know you needed one, Mary. Because I don't want to be someone's fantasy or dream. Or, you're the only one that keeps me alive. Oh boy, then we're both in trouble. Keeping me alive is my job. Keeping you alive is your job. So I don't want to take in the high praise. I don't want to take in the negativity. You're such a helpful and good daughter. And many of us might fall for that. Because then, oh good, finally somebody gives me approval. No. Well, Dad, I doubt that. It's just me. And gosh, Mom, sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm not. Well, you're such a helpful and good daughter. I'm just Jane, Dad, and I wanted to be of help. Or I was glad I could be of help. I want to matter-of-fact it and not fall for the praises and go, finally, I get a little drop of water for who I am as a person. No, I don't need that, and I don't need the negative. There are people who have said to me several times, and I know many of them are playful and being playful, and I'll be playful back with them too. So I don't take anything too seriously. But, oh, Jerry, I wish I would have had you for a dad. Oh my, you probably would be worse off than you are now. Oh, Jerry, I wish I'd have had you for a dad. You'd really need therapy if that had happened. Or a kind of perplexing kind of one. Jerry, I wish I would have had you for a dad because you're so fabulous. No, you wouldn't. I snore. We don't want to get caught in others' negativity about us and their fantasies about us. Neither one. Become determined to like and love yourself, then it won't matter whether others like or love you. I hope you'll please subscribe, join, like, and comment. You can also donate on my website to help me keep these posts for more videos on here. I want to thank you all for joining me today. Have a great day and be wise.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Jerry Wise. I'm a life and relationship coach. I've been helping people for 40 plus years. I have a guest joining me, Yitz Goldberg. He also works with Jerry Wise Relationship Systems, and he is a coach as well as a social worker. And he joins me today on the beginning of this series that we're doing on the principles of self-differentiation. I hope you'll subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please click join to become a paid member. It's only $1.99 every month. And that really helps us do these free videos for you. And then I have a workshop coming up December 5th, 2020 on Saturday from 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Please go to the website, look under events, and you can join me for that workshop on reducing your reactivity. Hey, hello, Yitz. Good to be with you
Jerry.
again.
Yep, I'm excited for the series.
We've got a number of principles we're going to be going through, and we're trying to get those covered because I think they can be helpful in some shorter videos that we do for you to bring you each of these principles. And today we're talking about a principle of self-differentiation, in which differentiation is the capacity to take a stand in an intense emotional system.
Yeah.
So, and again, what we've been borrowing from Edwin Friedman's book, The Failure of Nerve, which is a great book I would recommend to anyone. And he talks about differentiation as an emotional change, not just a behavioral change, and one in which we are able to live in a certain state of differentiation rather than a particular act of differentiation. It's getting ourselves to where we are in a state of greater self-differentiation. And the first principle talks about our ability to take a stand in an intense emotional system. But I think you can have an increased ability in self-differentiation, even to learn to do it in a lesser intense emotional system, because we can take our baby steps and begin to practice taking a stand in even lower anxiety systems and work our way up to more intense relationship systems.
Yeah, that would be good practice. Even though usually our differentiation is challenged when the system is intense, like when the emotional system is intense, that's usually when our differentiation is most challenged.
Correct.
So, to me, I think this whole idea of taking a stand in an intense emotional system is usually what I deal with, for example, with clients who say my father is a narcissist, or my family is dysfunctional, or my workplace is like this, and they always describe the system around them as being very intense, very unhealthy, very immature, as
High
if that allowed
anxiety.
them, yeah, as if that allowed them until now to be undifferentiated, right? To continue to being immature. And
Good point.
yeah, and they could do that, meaning if that's what they want, how they want to live their life, they could do that. But at the end of the
So
day, we are
so they would
challenged.
be ask so they would be asking, well, how can I possibly differentiate given all of this drama and chaos?
Right, right.
Is the is their cutting edge, right, where they're at the cutting edge of change.
But that is where you are supposed to differentiate. Those are the places that you are going to be challenged. And actually, those are the places that, with the right work, you're able to really differentiate on a much deeper level, not
That,
only just because the surroundings are kind of okay and they're not challenging you.
well, and I think of it as the whole fear, overcoming a fear issue. We'll be ready to do it when my fear goes away versus are you ready to do it and go through the fear, um, and not wait for it to go away. We're always wanting the circumstances and situations to be amenable and to be uh, how we'd
Yeah,
like them to be. Well, I would differentiate from my mom if she was just more understanding. Well, no, differentiation is differentiation regardless of her understanding or not understanding.
yeah,
That's the it doesn't it's not dependent on them. And in fact, if we are wise, we then and that'll be another principle we're talking about is what happens when we do differentiate in a highly charged or an intense emotional system. Usually, it won't be welcomed with calmness and affirmation. It's, and if you know that going in, you're able to fortify yourself more and staying calm with not needing that approval,
yeah,
not needing that acceptance. Now,
yeah.
I
To
interrupted
me,
you.
no, I was saying that to me, taking a stand in an intense emotional system, it means that I'm not trying to change the system, nor
Exactly.
am I trying to change myself for the system. And throughout this time, I stay myself despite the system trying to change me and despite the system not changing. Right. So
Right.
this is the process of differentiation, allowing the system or the people to continue being who they are or doing what they are doing, but you're the one differentiating. You're the one taking the steps outside, or more you, more of a
Yeah,
self, right?
more
Creating
of
more of
self.
an I, right?
Right.
You're not
And
leaving the system to rebel. You're leaving the system because it's right for you, or you're doing things that are different than what is expected from the system because it's right for you, not out of I don't know, resentment or trying to get back at the system, right? That would
right,
just be
which
being
a
reactive.
cutoff. That would be a cutoff, which is what we often do, thinking we're changing. Well, I'll just cut off from them, and then I'll be different. And by the way, cutoff and going no contact are two different things. Cutoff is an immature avoidance. No contact is a mature intentional choice, or low contact is a mature intentional choice and not based on my immaturity. It's based on my maturity. And so that's I like to make those distinctions because a lot of people will think a cutoff is being mature. No,
Yeah,
that's you can't handle the heat in the kitchen, so you get out of the kitchen. Rather than taking in a bucket of cold water with ice in it to take care of yourself in a hot kitchen. That's I can take care of myself, and maybe I can even step into the dining room to get out of the hot kitchen, but I'm still talking to the people who are in the kitchen. And so I
Yeah.
have connectedness while being myself, my real self. And I realize, and we then there's a whole continuum of problems, from severe narcissists and malignant narcissists to abuse situations to, just good old neurotic families and dysfunctional families. And so one shoe doesn't fit all people, but this work of differentiation is something everyone can do, and is important for us to do to grow up and to be mature.
Right. Because for one person, staying in contact with an intense system could be the right thing, if that's what they're interested in doing.
Hmm.
And for another, really going no contact out of a mature kind of state, that would be the right thing for them to do. Jerry, I wanted to ask you, what would you recommend to someone who's in an emotional intense system right now, in a system that's very charged up, a lot of anxiety going on, also from the person himself or herself, and from the family or
Yeah.
the system? What would you recommend for them? What would you tell them to do that will allow them to kind of see themselves, right, to stay calm inside the system, and yet know what they need to do, like what their next steps are?
And of course, that's a big question because there's a lot connected to that. Um, but I think I would talk to people about, and talk to clients about, ha false beliefs, how much we have, or, well, let me talk about enmeshment first. I might talk about enmeshment. How enmeshed are we? Meaning, how much do I need their approval? How much do I need their acceptance? How much do I need to borrow self from them? And if I don't get it, then all is lost, and it's a catastrophe,
Yeah.
because that's going to keep us more reactive and more, and learning to get to the place where we're saying, so what that they reject me? So what? It won't make my pants fall down, is what I use in a silly, trying to be silly or playful, because I want to think about, well, what really would happen if they reject me? Most of the time, we're fearing something that's already happening, but we're fearing it's going to happen. It's already happening, and you're still alive. I mean, you're still, when we say, well, what if my parents reject me? They probably already are. I mean, and you're still hanging in there. And so the catastrophe often does not exist, but we have fear of that. To bring our fears down, working on that enmeshment, and learning to heal some of the wounds and hurt so I can get greater detachment. In other words, if I was wounded or as a child, emotionally or self-esteem wise, then I'll keep going back to try to get something from them that they can't give. And then I'm going to stay in the emotional drama and the highly charged nature of it until I get it.
Right.
Well, I try to talk about the illogicalness of that, not to shame anyone. It's not. That's what we've learned to do. But the point is to help them with the realities of, your parents can't do that anymore. That you don't need your parents for, and I'm just using parents for an example. It could be your ex, it could be your children, it could be your boss, your what. You
Yeah.
don't need them anymore to be emotionally sound. And if you're looking for them to be that, then you're barking up the wrong tree. You don't need them. It's not necessary. It's bad news, but it's good news. The bad news is, oh, you mean my parents are never going to accept me and love me like I've always wanted? That's bad news. But do you know what? It's good news because your parents can't do that anyway. And I was just talking to some clients, and they were talking about how they were wounded by their parents growing up. Their parents later in life apologized and were remorseful for what they had done. Amazingly, it doesn't heal the wounds. Now, do I think parents should apologize? Absolutely. And I'm glad they were. I think that's a wonderful gift. But if someone else causes me a wound, it's now my responsibility to heal the wound. So it's my wound. It's not theirs. They can't fix that. And if they can come to that understanding, then we end up having more power and more sense of empowerment, where now I can state, I can take a stand, because I'm not dependent on what everyone else has got to give me. I don't know if that.
No, that was a good answer. Yeah, for sure. That was a good answer. And I think I could even answer myself that I think when someone is in such a relationship that's intense and very, I don't know, dramatic, a lot of anxiety, then the first thing is awareness of it, and being aware when it becomes intense, in what ways it might be intense. And I think that part of that awareness is understanding that if you are still in that system, that means parts of you are still interested in being in that system.
Exactly.
And
that's
needing
that system.
Needing exactly. Yeah. And that's an uncomfortable truth, right? To be able to see that, to be able to feel that, to know that this intensity is driving you crazy, but yet you're still here. So I think the next step after that awareness would be accepting that reality, understanding that that's the system. This is you at this moment. And something that helped me in the past, this is something very practical, is what would I do differently if I bring down my tolerance for this intensity?
Exactly.
And very often that shows me the way, right? It would show me what behavioral changes I need to make to take myself out of that intensity.
Right. Yeah. No, and those are excellent points. And I wanted to share, we just have a few minutes left. I wanted to share, and I don't want to, if you have more to share, yes, you certainly can. But I think of the gradation of beginning to take a stand in a situation. And take a stand does not mean we have no compromise or we don't negotiate, but taking a stand is not negotiable. In other words, as simple as, hey, your husband says, I want to go out and eat Mexican, but you'd really like to eat Chinese or Asian food tonight. You can take a stand and say, well, I really would enjoy and would like to eat Asian food tonight. I'm feeling that, Chinese food. And now you may compromise and go, no, but we can go eat Mexican. But I'm taking a stand as to what I really want. But it doesn't mean I can't. Where the problem comes in is when we have, where our self and our preferences are negotiable. And that's where they go, well, where do you want to go eat tonight? I don't know. I'll go wherever you want to eat. Now I'm not taking any stand. There is no self in there. You can take a stand and negotiate. But even if I go to the Mexican restaurant with my husband, let's say, or my partner, and we go to a Mexican restaurant, it doesn't change the fact I wanted to go to an Asian restaurant. That's what I preferred. And I took a stand on that. But I don't need to end the marriage because we're not going to an Asian restaurant tonight. So that's a low level taking a stand. Then I remember, and I think you've maybe seen in some of my videos, where the family prayer, where I was a pastor at the time, I didn't want to continue doing the family prayer at all of our family gatherings. I didn't want to be the anointed or person that I've got to do the prayer every time we're together. And I didn't want to do that. But I knew saying no, there would be some anxiety or awkwardness because my mom was determined that I should do that. So that's
Yeah.
another layer of discomfort. Then I remember when I was a pastor and with a council of bishops in which I was a bishop, and I was telling them how I thought we were not serving those who had depression and mental illnesses and such, and that we needed to use professionals outside the church because we couldn't provide those services, and how much that was heretical to my church, and how I knew they would not be happy with that at all, with my view. And there, the anxiety was much higher, and it had to do with my career and my job and what all my other colleagues think about me and support and all kinds of stuff. Well, the anxiety goes up, and can we take a stand in those situations? And so I think we build ourselves to where we can take a stand in
Yeah.
intense emotional system.
I will add on that, and then we could end the video, unless obviously you have anything to add on that. That very often in the beginning when we start, or maybe not even in the beginning, right? Always when we meet a new level of challenging ourselves or taking a stand, then very often the taking a stand could come out a bit more aggressive or less flexible than it would with someone who's built that flexibility and who knows that going to a Chinese restaurant, even though that's not my first priority, is okay, but someone else that might be their way to take a stand. And that's okay. Like that's part
That's
of
okay.
the process. That's part of the journey of playing around of what feels comfortable for you to be flexible with and what is non-negotiable at all.
And 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 when we begin to do the work of self-differentiation and taking a stand, it's no different than when we start being a teenager and start being an adolescent. And we're going to make mistakes. We're going to not say it right. But we're going to practice at getting better at that and getting better at knowing ourselves to where we end up hopefully becoming calm, thoughtful, emotionally aware adults. And that's our goal that we're heading towards, to where we can take a stand while staying connected to the system. But that takes going through an adolescence where you're going to overdo it, underdo it. You're going to say, well, I didn't state that clear enough.
Yeah.
Oh, I stated that way too clear. I made it a declaration of independence, and yeah, we start, whenever you try something new, you can overdo it or underdo it. And then you keep learning and it starts becoming truly you. And then you get better at knowing how to state in a calm way you're taking a stand on emotional issues, and able to do that calmly.
Yeah.
And then we raise less anxiety in the system, and we also feel more confident and secure in ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've come to the end of our time, and
Yeah.
we've spent 20 minutes or so talking about this first principle. We've got about 8 or 9 principles left to go that we're going to be doing videos on. You can work with YITS. You can book online at jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com to work with YITS as a life and relationship coach, and in the area of self-differentiation too. You can work with me. You can contact me using the contact information below. Don't forget about the workshop on December 5th, 2020. And also, please join and subscribe to this channel. Click the bell to get all the new videos, and click join to join as a paid member so we can continue bringing these videos to you. Anything you want to share, Yitz, before we go?
No, nothing else. Join the workshop that I definitely want to recommend and share. Reducing our reactivity.
Right.
Yeah.
And that will help. I think that's another one of those principles of reducing that reactivity and focusing on that. I want to thank you all for joining us today and listening to us. I hope you have a